You're watching a Cobcast. I'm Cobb, and this is the cast. I'm the guy behind the camera, and the man in front of me is named Ben Sandifer. There's a nice photo of this front side now. As you can see, we're muscling our way through some pretty rough terrain right in the Great Trinity Forest. There's a concrete trail that wraps around this part of the forest at a place called Joppy Preserve. But where we were headed, the trail wasn't going to be very useful. We wanted to get to this thing. Today, it just looks like a mess of old concrete and knotted up rebar. Just a few years ago, though, it was part of a levee that helped hold together a hidden Dallas gem called Lemmon Lake. Since the breach in the levee around 2017, the lake has slowly disappeared. This area used to be the site of the Trinity River Rod and Gun Club, a fishing and hunting club that opened in 1897, which would have stood right around here. The club went defunct in the 60s and 70s, and in the 80s, someone had the idea to turn Lemmon Lake into the White Rock Lake of southern Dallas. But that never happened. And with the levee broken, it may never happen. We tried several points of entry on our way to the levee breach, including this one, but as you can see, we had to turn around. On our way, we came across an aquifer-fed pond that Sandifer often visits. On the shore of the pond is an old wood structure that's fallen apart over the years. Whoa. Yeah, we've got this wood structure right here. So explain to me what exactly we're looking at.
Okay, so we're on a aquifer-fed pond in the Great Trinity Forest near Lemmon Lake. And this structure was like a World War I to Depression era pump house that pumped water from this pond, this water body, into a farm that was just off to the south of where we are now, just a couple hundred yards. And so this was used as irrigation for that lake. The farm itself, it's thought, was originally run by and leased by Japanese immigrants that came here during a big immigration push in the 1920s, late after World War I, into Texas, and they kind of spread up through Texas. And according to some of the archaeological records from this area, it's thought that the Japanese family was forced to sell their land and their farm at the beginning of World War II because of their heritage. And it's kind of sad about what happened to this land and how someone had their land taken away from them, people that were American citizens but were Japanese by birth in this area. And so it's kind of a dark tale about kind of forgotten piece of kind of Dallas history, and we're way back in the woods now, very, very, very far back. So that's the story with this wooden piece of infrastructure that served a farming family very well 100 years ago.
And real quick, you said that it looks like it's finally kind of fallen apart. Have you come out here and it was put together?
It was intact, yeah. I've actually ridden out. I had a metal tin roof to it, and I've been down here a couple times when storms were blowing up. And that's the only shelter out here really, to get in a dry spot. And it's a pretty fun place to kind of get up into some of this stuff and sit. There's a chair, seat, wooden bench here, and you can kind of just look out onto this real pretty piece of a pond that no one ever visits. So.
After nearly 2 hours of marching through the Trinity Forest, we finally made it to the levee breach.
The technical term is like alluvial fan. You can just see how this all broke away. Look at all this rebar and concrete where it just blew out.
And this was the levee, you said?
And this was all just a mess of previous demolished concrete and rebar. But that's what caused this to fail. It blew out. Just the hydraulic pressure blew this whole thing out. And so that's why you have this kind of bird's nest of concrete and rebar here.
Wow.
And that's the culprit. That's what this one kind of bathroom-sized chunk of concrete matrix is what blew it all out. So there was a little further down. There was an engineered or manufactured spillway a little further up the river here. This is what the weakest link, the one little spot. I remember 5-6 years ago, the levee or the dam for the levee, the earthen dam here, was only as wide as a human foot. And we knew, a couple of my friends and I knew that at some point that was going to be the point of failure. Wow. And actually, as far back as 20 years ago, in the early 2000s, they knew that this area, if it was reinforced with riprap and a secondary levee put inside of it, it would protect the lake.
And so if this hadn't failed, what would we have here, basically?
We'd have a lake. It would be still kind of an ephemeral lake. So it would, by this time of year, it would have probably gone dry, which is fine because that's one of the telltales for some really great wildlife habitat in these areas, where it floods in the winter to support duck populations. And then during the summer, it slowly drains off and creates a great food resource for a lot of waterfowl and wildlife. And then this time of year it goes completely dry for a little bit, and then in the fall, when we get our fall and winter rains, it fills back up again. There are a couple reasons why this lake is dry, and doesn't have a lot to do with this concrete that failed. It's that over the years, over the last 50, 60, 70 years, construction upstream has impaired the inflow of little small creeks and things that used to feed Lemmon Lake. So when Loop 12 was built across the Trinity River, there's a big impoundment, big ballast of soil there that was used to elevate Loop 12, and that blocked a creek from the Joppy area from feeding this. There are a couple of ditches that were constructed by Trinity Rod and Gun Club members that fed this, that was blocked as well. And then I think the worst indignity, because that's something, none of the stuff I previously discussed is anything that modern Dallasites could have fixed. The real problem is that when they built the Trinity Forest Trail Phase 1, it blocked water from reaching this during like slight rain events, flooding events, from a creek that separates Little Lemmon Lake from Lemmon Lake. And with that earthen berm there, water can't flow into this lake very easily unless we get a big, big rain event where the Trinity River floods 20, 25 feet higher than where it sits right now. So the river would need to come up in this area 25 feet.
The levee could be fixed, and the lake could be brought back completely, but that would take a lot of money. A couple $1 million by Sandifer's estimation. And there are plenty of other ways that money could be spent in southern Dallas. After all, the area is plagued by issues like high crime, food insecurity, and a lack of economic growth, all of which could use such an investment. So, the future isn't exactly bright for Lemmon Lake, but now it serves a new purpose, Sandifer said. It's turned into this magnificent wet meadow where other wildlife can flourish. It's the Trinity River reclaiming something that humans built. It's literally the return back to nature, he said. It's the natural process of things. If humans leave something alone long enough, it will revert back to nature.
Wow. That was intense.
For more on the story of Lemmon Lake and our trip out there that day, visit DallasObserver.com. Thanks for watching.